For the first time in the 98-year history of the Federal Reserve, the chairman of America's central bank will hold a press conference. And Ben Bernanke has many constituencies to appease: angry members of Congress who want to limit the Fed's power, people who are wondering why the Fed hasn't been able to create more jobs, and economists who said QE2 was a mistake from the very beginning. And of course, there's the financial community, including our next guest, Roger Altman, the founder and chairman of Evercore Partners, the world's busiest investment banking boutique. Roger is also a former deputy Treasury secretary. So, Roger, do you think this choice by Ben Bernanke to hold press conferences is going to turn the Fed effectively into the ECB, an organization where the policy statement doesn't say very much and all the news comes in the news conference afterward?
Well, we'll have to wait and see on that. I think it's a welcome development because, of course, it's more transparency, and I think for everybody from the most intense Fed watchers to the general public, that's a good thing.
So, Roger, I mean, this is the first time that this is going to happen, that Bernanke is going to take questions directly from journalists. I mean, he's taken questions in many other venues, many other circumstances before. How much of a surprise factor is in today's press conference?
Well, the surprise may be the mere sight of the chairman of the Federal Reserve holding a press conference like this, a presidential-style press conference. I don't think there's going to be a surprise, however, on the substance. Yes.
Okay, because you think that most questions have been vetted beforehand.
Well, I think it's going to be a version of the line that Lyndon Johnson famously used to use sometimes when he came out for a press conference, and he would say to the assembled media, I hope you have some questions for my answers. So I don't expect to see a lot of spontaneity here. The Fed has a staff which I know quite well and is formidable.
And they've been basically working hard all this week.
To the nth degree for this, so I think his answers will be very careful and not terribly spontaneous. That's not to say he won't be revealing, but I don't think it's going to be a rock and roll event.
It's not going to be a free-for-all, all right.
So if if he's going to be careful in his answers, and the whole event, as you say, is quite carefully staged, to what degree do people really care? To what degree are people going to be paying very close attention to this if it's unlikely we're going to get many big surprises?
Well, today will be paid a lot of attention to because it's historic. It's the very first time the Federal Reserve Board chairman has held a presidential-style news conference, and it inaugurates, of course, a regular process of doing that. So it's a historic day. And for people who...
And a trading opportunity.
Well, every Fed statement is a trading opportunity. So I think today will be watched very closely. Whether it becomes eventually humdrum and is an object of interest only for Fed watchers, that remains to be seen. I think it's an important event, though, because we'll see in the Fed statement, we'll see in the vote, we'll see in Mr. Bernanke's comments, any signals as to when the Fed might be out in the future going to adjust policy, begin a process of tightening.
Is that unavoidable? That somehow, we'd like to think there are some clever journalists in the crowd, we're inclined to believe that, right? That somehow he's going to be drawn out, that somebody will ask a question in such a way, or he's going to slip up, or he's going to say something revealing about the future. You can imagine that he's replaying, or he's at least playing in advance, the scenario in his head over and over and over again, trying to make sure that it comes off as well as possible.
Well, if he sends a different signal than the Fed has been sending, and I doubt it, but if he does, it won't be a spontaneous moment. It'll be because he and the staff have very carefully determined to word an answer to a particular question in a certain way to send a slightly different signal. Now, that is more likely to be evident in the statement following the end of the two-day FOMC meeting before the chairman even gets out there for his press conference. And, of course, what everybody's going to focus on is whether the Fed revises its wording at all on the term extended period, which, of course, is the term they've used to indicate that they're going to be sticking with maximum ease for a long time, whether they're going to refer any differently to the role that commodity prices may be having in terms of their own inflation expectations, whether they're going to refer any differently to inflation expectations as a whole. And all that type of stuff will be viewed, with a microscope, as it always is, by the markets.